It's the Rangers Journal time.
How are we doing, guys? Good evening. Welcome to the Rangers Journal on Monday, the 3rd of March. I'm joined tonight by Doug and Andrew. How are we doing, boys?
Doing good.
Yep, doing good. Thanks.
Good. So I've been let loose on the hosting tonight. I hosted my first show last night and I've been flung back under the bus again by Scotty. So bear with me if everything doesn't run as nicely and as smoothly. And I'm warning Curry Muncher already. If he comes after me, I'm ready for him tonight. So So obviously, guys, another disappointing weekend. Seems like just deja vu as far as being a Rangers fan's concerned. So I'll come to you first of all in the starting lineup from Saturday. I don't think there was any kind of surprises there. So we had Butland obviously starting goals, Vidvan, Tavernier making his 500th appearance as well, Robin Proper sitting into next time in central defence with Jeffy at left back, Raskin and Diamandi in midfield, Hadji, Tierney, Egeman with Dessers starting up front. Andrew, coming to you first of all, what was your initial thoughts on the starting lineup? Was there any kind of surprises from your side of things?
Well, obviously we saw Tavernier used at centre back at Kilmarnock, and I didn't see this happening for today. To be fair, I thought he'd be back in his right back berth. To be fair, being at home and stuff, but I guess that was a little bit of a surprise. Obviously, we had a chat about whether he was going to maybe be at centre back, going forward, but maybe that's a little bit of a plan for Ferguson. Squad-wise, the midfield was quite strong. You look at it, the bench, obviously extremely strong now, with the fact you had Liam Balogun there. It was interesting to see who was going to start today. You thought maybe it's a little bit too early for Balogun and Suter, but it was there was nothing really glaring coming out of that for me. At first I thought, okay, fair enough. I was just kind of thinking, what formation would he use? I think that was the only thing I was really thinking about.
Yeah, Doug, coming on you, mate. Obviously with the substitutes, Kelly, Barron, Lawrence, Bajrami, Sterling, Balogun, Rice, Curtis and Danilo. There's a couple of kind of notable absences there. He seems to have just taken Enciala right out the squad altogether. Fernandez, again, just a new signing, nowhere to be seen. The Coslin. But there's no Oscar Cortes still. I was led to believe that he was becoming available. And I think, games at home, obviously, he's not going to be involved in the European during the week. So there's a possibility maybe rest somebody. What were your thoughts on the subs?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that Enciala dropped out completely. I was expecting him to come out the starting lineup, give him a little bit of a break, and a chance to sort of recover from the performance of the previous week. But it's a bit of a shame for him, I think. Just kind of hope that it's not something that'll dent his confidence. Fernandez, it kind of speaks maybe to where his standing is right now. We're obviously picking Tavernier ahead of him, who's not a centre back when he is. I understand perhaps him not wanting to play alongside another inexperienced player, but I mean, Proper isn't, for all his issues, isn't an experienced player. So to not have him in completely. But that being said, I don't think anyone's picking him ahead of Balogun. So if you've got Balogun available, then that does sort of make sense in that regard. I think for me, the main question was whether or not he was going to pick some of the new players in terms of Balogun or that and put them straight in or not. And that was kind of the main question. I figured the rest of the team would be roughly the same. So it was just a case of whether you put them in or if you chose not to, which is probably the right decision. Although that being said, probably the right decision, given I'd want Balogun for Fenerbahce. So you maybe want to control his minutes, but give him some minutes. So that was fine. But yeah, like you say with Cortes, it maybe it's just a case that Ferguson's not had a chance to see him properly. From what I gather, he's only just back in training. So if he's not really had a chance to see him, then he's maybe just not getting anything to base any trust on, or and so maybe we'll see him in the coming weeks.
Sure. Andrew, coming to you this minute. Obviously, we always talk about how important it is for Rangers to start well. I truly believe in the first 5 minutes of games, you pretty know what you're going to get for the rest of the 90 from Rangers. And from the way they started, you can see the recording in the first minute. There's a free kick that were put into the box, and Hadji and Tavernier are both looking at each other as if to say who's going to take it, but it all leads to a goal in the 9th minute. And I'm going to go through this, and it's a calamity, to be honest with you. We've got Butland comes out, catches a cross, straight away it's to Dessers. Dessers takes a touch like a set of railings, to be honest with you. Proper starts basically walking out of the defence as well. There's no urgency from him to catch up with the rest of the line. There, if we do press in a counter attack and we do manage to take up the park, Proper's the last guy for whatever reason. A shot comes in, Butland spills it. Yilmaz doesn't hold his man off at all to give Butland any chance of a recovery to make up his mistake. The FD's sitting looking at it, in my opinion. He's just basically jogging as well, and the ball ends up in the back of the net. It's like, where do you start with that one, mate?
Where do you start with it? I know it was an absolute mess. For me, Butland's got it all wrong. Now, people do look at the ball out to Dessers. Yeah, he's made a bit of a mistake there. He's not got a full grip of it, but there's still about 3 points of failure after that where we could have recovered the ball and we didn't. Butland was too rigid when he was going down. I've played in goal, and with that type of shot, sometimes you get these kind of shots that come in. They have an awkward bounce sometimes, and they're difficult. But that wasn't really a difficult one. Yeah, it's not even really hit too hard. You've just got to cushion it and gather it. And he didn't do that. He was too rigid. It's come off him. And again, even the defence were not ready to react to that either. Multiple points of failure. Butland was the worst one there. I said a couple of years ago. It wasn't long after the Butland's first season. I said, you know what? Every Old Firm game, we've seen nothing from him. He's picked the ball out the net in that first season. Yeah, he pulled off some good saves for us in other games. We were doing a lot of comparisons to Alan McGregor, I think. Oh, he's coming for crosses. That's good. A lot of positives to Butland. And of course, there was interest from Nottingham Forest, wasn't there? And among a few other clubs. And we thought we got to kind of build from the back with him there. He's solid. He's gone through the floor. And I don't know if it's because he's not confident in the defence in front of him. And I think the defence also might not be confident with the keeper behind. So when you get situations like that, it messes with the chemistry a little bit. Everybody's a bit more all over the place with things like that. Butland I've never seen a goalkeeper hit this much of a low without it. If he was maybe 39, 40, 41, you might think, okay, it's because of his age. He's getting towards the end of his career. I don't know what it is. Yeah, he's got a new child. Maybe things are difficult at home, but yeah, horrific. The whole goal we conceded, like you said there, Ryan. Normally the first 5 minutes you can work out how we're going to play. We never seem to dictate play and set the tone. There's been a few times we've done it this season and then dropped off completely. We're at home. It's Armed Forces Day. It's James Tavernier's 500th game. It was horrible.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree, mate. Doug, coming to you on Jack Butland, we're starting to create a catalogue here of errors. You're going back to kind of Christmas time. You look at the Motherwell game. He's horrible for the first goal. The first goal's went through his legs. He's got away with one that the referee's given him a free kick. I think Tony Watt went up and actually headed the ball into the back of the net, which probably, actually, truth be told, should have stood. He's cleaned out a St Mirren striker as well, which is just total hesitancy as well. He could have stayed in his line, or he could have been out earlier. He's punched the ball into the back of his own net against Manchester United. He's had an absolute howler again at the weekend there. Like, where does it go here? Do you think we're in a position where we actually should drop him? Do you think Liam Kelly should be coming in and, and if we do bring in Liam Kelly, how long will we bring him in for?
I think maybe that's part of the problem. Is if I said on one of the pods last week, if you choose to drop your goalie, that's a potentially big decision because goalies are specialised positions, and I think they are confidence positions as well. So the fact that the confidence is low across the board is probably like it's like a feedback loop of just unease. Your goalie's not at his best, so the defence don't feel great, and that makes the defence make mistakes, which makes the goalie feel not great, and so you just end up with like a feedback loop there of worry and anxiety and who's going to make the next mistake, when's it going to come, am I ready for it? So that's my problem with dropping him. I just worry that does Kelly come in, and I mean, first of all, I don't think Kelly's as good of a goalkeeper as Butland, so while he might improve in certain aspects, I kind of feel like it might balance off in that he'll concede goals that Butland would save. The sort of example I give is the Man United game. Where he makes the big howler, but at the same time also made about 3, 4, 5 really good saves, strong saves. So the question for me is, does Kelly make those saves, or does that end the game end up 4-1 instead of 2-1? But then, like you say, we've got a catalogue of errors now. So how long can you go before you kind of have to do something? If we were in a more competitive environment, then I'd probably be quicker to say, yeah, pull him out. Maybe it's just because I know we've got nothing on, really, that I'm more kind of just like, I just leave him. How much damage is going to do? But yeah, if it wasn't Fenerbahce, I would probably drop him. But the fact that the level of quality we're going to face, I feel like we need our best goalkeeper, even if he's not in his best form. So I think that's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment. I do feel the urge and the needs to take him out because of the growing catalogue errors, but at the same time, I'm just not sure that Kelly's up to the level of the 2 games we're about to go into, or 3, in fact 3 games that we're about to go into.
Yeah. There's a quote here, comment here, sorry, from Graham Park Loyal. Once we exit Europe, I'm giving one of the clubs to the end of the season. I think I'd be all for that, to be honest with you. We obviously see a lot of potential in young Mason. I think he'll probably move out on loan next season, but if we do go out of Europe, literally there is nothing to play for. So why not? It's just only going to give him experience. And as much as we give one the gloves, I'm looking for Finlay Curtis, I'm looking for Bailey Rice to come into the team. I'm looking for the reintroduction of Inciala as well to try and kind of get him back in and try and get these kind of young boys in. So, Andrew, bring on the second goal here, mate. Again, it's another one. It's horrible. So, Tavernier literally passes the ball straight to Lennon Miller. There's nobody in the middle of the park for us. Raskin actually checks his shoulder and marks the wrong guy. We're proper to be picking up. It's another one of, again, we're talking about catalogues errors, but Jeffrey's basically came inside and pushed inside, and he's opened up the space for the boy Sparrow to literally, it's a wide player's dream. The fullback's tucked inside. He's got the ball at a great pace right in front of him, touch and shoot right into the bottom corner. How would you rate Jeffrey's he's played more minutes than anyone for Rangers this season, according to what Doug was saying last week. How would you rate his time at Ibrox?
There's been flashes and glimpses of decent play. I think he seemed to play a little bit better with Yilmaz with him out on that left-hand side. I think that was where we saw him at his prime. There's been too many occasions where Jeff Day just has completely not known who's behind him and hasn't looked. We've seen it about 3 or 4 times now. And it's frustrating. And then you see the link he's got with Chelsea as well. So Chelsea clearly see something in him, maybe just because he's Brazilian. I don't know. But it was a mess. Now, don't get me wrong. When you get one of them goals where, the ball's given away in a dangerous position and nobody's really got their shape because you're looking to break at that point, I can understand sometimes when you're caught on the hop a little bit. But Jeff Day, he's got a couple of seconds there to look over and go, right, even if he can just jockey him and kind of force him to make it at least get a ball in. No, he's just staring at the ball. He's ball watching at that point. And to be fair, it was a good finish. You have to hand it to them. It was a very good finish. But again, it's a mess. 2 weeks on the trot. So I say 2 weeks, a few days in between the 2 games. We've gone 2-0 down early doors. That's not Rangers, and it isn't.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm kind of referencing back to Andy Halliday's goal against us at Hampden. I'm looking at the Queen's Park goal. I'm even looking at Fernandez's goal at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
He's letting go, and now we've got this now.
That was more annoying. Yeah.
Really, to be honest, it's just lack of concentration all over the board from him, and unfortunately, you don't get that at our level. That even what people can say what they want about the top level of Scottish football, you still need to be better than that. Doug, what I was going to ask you, mate, is obviously there's a guy in the building, Ridvan, who travelling to Turkey on Thursday night would be very, very keen to start. Would you start him at left back over Jeff Day on Thursday night?
Yeah, I think I might. I think the issue with Jeff is he's been overplayed. We forget he's still a young lad. He's 21. He's not had a huge amount of top level football. The season before was his first sort of, I think, playing at a higher level when he was over in was it Greece, I think he was in, and then obviously coming over here with the extra level of pressure and things going on in European football, things like that. he's taken on a lot, and you know, he looked really bright at the beginning. I was really excited about him. I thought he was going to be a potential player of the season, and it's just not quite panned out for him. It's been a little bit disappointing in the second half. He's not really added the output to the sort of skill set that we've seen. But I do think that's partly because he's maybe been overplayed, and I think that's happened to a couple of players. I mean, we've done it with Tavernier plenty of times as well, simply because we don't have the squad. So I think Yilmaz, I've always liked Yilmaz. I think he's a decent player. Got a good pass on him. He's not quite as explosive in the running, but I think he's a little bit more careful with the ball, and he chips in a couple of goals as well. So I think it could be quite a good idea. Like you say, he'd be back in his home country. He'd almost certainly be up for the game that little bit extra because of that. If we are looking to sell him or he's looking to leave, and Turkey is a destination he'd like to go back to, it's a great way for him to get eyes on him as well. So yeah, I think that could be a good option. Or if not, as a replacement, then I think it's a good option to put on the wing, the way we did against Tottenham, because I think that worked really well, and that's something I think that could be work really well again for games like this.
Sure, mate. Well, you've led me nicely on my next question, so obviously nothing really to talk about at the end of the first half. For Pepper and their goals, I think Diamandi brought a save out the goalkeeper. Dessers had one. It was a good chance, although he was offside from that as well. So it brings us on to the kind of substitutes at half time. Proper get taken off for Balogun, obviously, potentially because of the head knock or something like that he taken in the first half. Bazrami came on for Hadji there. So one question I was going to ask you, Andrew, do you think Bazrami would be more effective in the left-hand side than Hadji? Do you really think that Hadji offers his best football from the left-hand side, or do you think we should actually persevere with Bazrami out there?
Oh, do you know, it's a difficult one. You kind of know what you're getting with Hadji to a degree. Sadly, based on previous, Hadji obviously starts quite well, then kind of drops off a little bit. We've seen that under a few managers and a few things, but he's in a bit of a better vein of form. Over the past few weeks, he's kind of dropped off a little bit in recent weeks. Bazrami, I always go back to, I know it's Europe, but the Lyon game, obviously a terrible result for us, but he was more advanced and could read the game better than most of the players on the park and was trying to play some very decent balls. He's very, very capable. Now, we were all crying out for him to be in that kind of number 10 role. I don't think Clement was using the 10 in the kind of footballing sense properly, which was a shame. And obviously when we seen him in the number 10, it didn't really work for him. Albania, when he's played out there on the left, he's been fantastic. I think that maybe he has needed a couple of games out, to kind of take stock and get back into it. There's also rumours that he's not too happy here, whether that's just the fact that people are reading his body language or reading into something else. I do rate him as a footballer. I think he was one of the players to go for. Yeah, I do agree. Maybe at that time, we already had options that could have slotted in there. Maybe we should have gone for a different type of player for a different position, but that's a different story for another day. But I do see, he's our player. We've got him. I think we've got to try and bed him in. With some players, it does take a bit of time to adapt to Scottish football because it can be a bit of a slog for some players. But I probably would go Bazrami. I know a lot of people would probably disagree with that at the minute. Hadji shows a lot of heart, and he does. Sometimes to a point where it goes against him, where he can be a bit rash with some challenges, especially when he loses the ball. But there's a player in Bazrami, and you don't just become a bad footballer overnight. I think Clement's tactics played a big part with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think if it's the choice between them both, I'd probably start Hadji again on Thursday night. I think we're obviously, Doug had mentioned there about Yilmaz working his ticket to Turkey. I think Hadji's probably in that boat as well. That Galatasaray rumour probably never ever go away until it actually happens. So, if he is there wanting to work his ticket, then possibility he could get the best out of it. Doug, just coming at you with this was a weird substitution. He took Egeman off at half time for Tom Lawrence, who we probably all agree doesn't have a future at Ibrox. We're 2-0 down at half time, and I kind of question Ferguson, I question the coaching staff on this one, that he's brought on Lawrence for Egeman. Now, would Danilo not have been a better substitution at half time, given the fact we're 2-0 down? Push Egeman out onto the left hand side, bring Danilo on at the 10, and basically give yourself the opportunity to have Dessers, Danilo, and Eagleman all in the park at the same time. 3 goal scorers when you are trying to chase, the possibility of getting 3 goals. But he's basically brought on, he's taken off, a bright young star to bring on somebody who doesn't have a future and probably hasn't really ever cut the mustard at Ibrox at all.
I think, obviously at that point, it's still early in the game. Overall, we've still got the full half to go, so I think you'd probably be wary of overcommitting with the attacking players. Lawrence has been back fit slightly longer than Danilo has as well. So he's probably a bit closer to match fitness than Danilo is. The thing with Tom Lawrence is, I understand most people are quite happy to just never see him again, but ultimately he's still in the European squad, so there's the potential he could play. It's easy enough to say, right, we're not. He's just going to sit at the bench for this season, but you never know who gets. Someone can get injured, suspended, whatever else, and then he's forced to play. So I can kind of understand from the manager's point of view that maybe you want to keep a couple of minutes in his legs in case he's needed for something like that. And then there's just the fact that although, the main issue with Lawrence has been injuries, when he's been on the park, I think he's been kind of 50-50. He's not by any means set the place alight, but he did get goals for us, and he was getting winning goals in the beginning of the season as well. Was it Dundee United? I think was it 1-0 he scored, and he had one, and I'm sure the game before that as well. So he was contributing, and contributing in meaningful ways. So if Ferguson's obviously, he said he's been watching the season. If he's been watching that, he maybe is looking at that and going, well, this is a player that maybe he's not got a future, but I need to try and get something now. I need a result now. I need some goals now. So he's maybe looked at it and gone, right, well, this was someone who was scoring goals before. Maybe he can do something for me again. So maybe a little bit of that, but I think it was probably just the fact that he maybe wanted to just put in a midfielder and try and get a bit more control of the game at that point. Because let's say if he puts Danilo in, you're kind of going all in with your attackers then. And it's probably maybe just still slightly too early, because if we start at the half and get a goal quickly, you're right back in the game. So it's probably just a little bit of pragmatism on Ferguson's side, and as opposed to just going all in from the get go of the half.
Sure, mate, sure. Andrew, going to talk about kind of 2 instances in the game at kind of one point here. So obviously Dessers got his goal, another kind of goal involvement from Yilmaz, kind of very, very kind of similar to a one that he set up. I think it was the one at Manchester United where he's played the long ball into Dessers, and it's came from a goal. So probably further strengthens Yilmaz, questions to the manager why he's not playing as much as what would maybe like him to see. So Dessers scores his goal, typical Cyril Dessers goal, nothing really to talk about, to be honest with you. But there comes an opportunity for Danilo where, again, it's quite a silky wee 1-2. Dessers, they flicks it into Dessers' feet. It's a lovely wee 1-2. And he doesn't shoot. And the whole stadium, we're up in arms why he's not pulled the trigger. And if you look back on it, the ball is caught under his feet a little bit. But is there an opportunity to try and open it up into his right foot and find the corner again? And it's one where we look at Dessers, and Dessers gets a hard time from the fans. But he's a guy that's always there. He runs his heart out. He does his best. It's not always noticed, perhaps on the television as much in the stadiums as much as there. But do you think that it's fair that Danilo gets an easier ride than Dessers? I don't ever hear anyone ever say a bad word about Danilo, but I hear people criticising Dessers quite constantly. But for me, pound for pound, Dessers has been a far better signing.
Well, yeah, for the fact that he, for a start, is fit. He's very rarely gone wanting. We've had fans booing him when he's been coming on, and that hasn't deterred him. He's desperate to stay at this club and desperate to give 110%. And you know what? This season, especially when the chips have been down, he has scored some absolutely fantastic goals. The equaliser against Manchester United, where he just he takes the yard off Maguire and just takes an instant shot. He is called the Enigma for a reason. He'll score some fantastic goals, and then he'll get the odd one caught under his feet. It wouldn't be him if it wasn't. Danilo is a very good technical footballer. He's a little bit slower, I think, in some respects, but he's very good with the ball. But the sad reality is when he's injured, it takes him a bit of time to get going again, and then you see him for weeks and he looks very flat. Then he suddenly is finding his form, and then boom, he's injured again. So Yeah, in some respects, I think people are just hoping that because we haven't fully seen Danilo day in, day out, I think people really haven't fully made their minds up. I know a lot of people have said, you know what, we just can't have him here anymore because he's another player that's taken up the medical bench that cost us a lot of money, and he's not really given us much. Personally, keep him fit. I think he will be our best striker. I do think he will. Obviously, Eggman's coming into his own now. I think before the rise of Eggman, I think he would have been the club's best striker. Because I think that he, when you do see him, he's very intelligent on the ball and he's got a good finish in him. But we don't see it enough. And sadly, at the minute, he plays well with another striker. I think Dessers also benefits from having Danilo with him as well. I think them two would work quite well. I remember reading something a couple of years back. I think at Feyenoord, I think the fans were calling for Dessers and Danilo to play together when there was rumours that one of them was being signed there. So people can see the type of partnership that they can have. It just depends on how we are going to play going forward, because personally I don't think that Ferg is going to change too much up. He's there to kind of just steady the ship and just see us out to the end of the season. It's not up to him to kind of completely tear everything up. But yeah, Danilo does get some stick, but he doesn't get the stick that Dessers does. I personally, if a bid doesn't come in for Dessers of, let's say, 4 million, then I think we should keep him because he's an asset. I think he does give us goals. Yeah, you'll miss some. You don't want him to be one-on-one at Parkhead because that's not going in. But he can score some fantastic goals. He's capable of it. But he's very much a form player. So if his head dips, I think you get a few weeks of nothing, personally. But he's useful, but he's not a out-and-out number 9 for me, personally.
Yeah, we definitely have nothing to add to what you say. I agree with everything you're saying. Doug, second goal disallowed for Rangers after a much kind of, looked at VAR, several different angles and stuff. Now, I don't think there's anybody out there that can say that ball definitely comes off of Danilo's knee. It might graze it there. For me, the ball doesn't seem to change direction at all when it moves on there. So has Danilo really affected the play? So there's an element of doubt in there. And I always believe that the team that scored the goal should get the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, football's all about goals and entertainment and stuff. So I think with the old offside rule, that the striker was always given the benefit of the doubt if there was a situation where the goal comes in. But see, given that it's these fine margins, now obviously there's nothing to play for now, as far as the league's concerned, we all know that. But what happens if that's a goal and we're still chasing? What happens if we're levelling points and that's disallowed? The thing I was going to ask you, mate, do you think the VAR, the technology, the equipment that they're using, do you think it's fit for purpose? Because everything's dead bloody. Everything, when they're talking about offside decision, how do they know that's the precise second that the guys hit the ball? I think they're talking about daylight having to come in between these offside decisions and stuff, but do you really think the VAR should have been looking to rule that out, or do you think that Rangers should be getting the benefit of the doubt?
Well, firstly, in regards to the tech, I think the tech's probably all right. The main issue I've seen is the people that are running it. From some of the, we had the stuff a couple of weeks ago where we got to hear what they're saying and they were just talking complete nonsense. Not looking at things they should be looking at, flippantly saying something without really looking at it. I feel like that's probably the bigger issue. You can obviously improve the technology as well, but they can have the best HD image in the world if they're not given the proper consideration to things, then you'll only improve so much. I was kind of in two minds about this because a lot of people were focusing their argument on whether or not Danilo touches the ball, and I suppose an issue there, and him being active in play and stuff like that. He's definitely active in play because he's blocking off a defender, and if he's not there, then that defender gets that ball. So I felt like that was a bit of a misnomer. In terms of looking at the line, I thought it's still quite a tight one overall, but I do think most of the time decisions when you're it's the same for offsides and certain types of fouls. if you want to encourage attacking, exciting football, then you give your decisions with the leaning towards the attacking team. That's usually been the philosophy as far as I'm aware. With IFAB and things like that, that's normally how they'll fall in these types of decisions, because ultimately you do that because you want to encourage more exciting football. And that's what most of the rule changes and things that happen these days are meant to do, because they want to get more football played in the pitch and they want to get more exciting football played. So I would definitely agree with that. If you're going to put a slant to a decision that's so tight you're struggling to call it for the attacking team, because that'll give you the more exciting football. And it gives your attackers, for all teams, not just us, that onus to push the line and to really go for it, and to make defenders, just have to defend better. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I would be just going to the side of the attackers with tight decisions like that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think just coming on to GM's comments here, I'm not going to drag this out anymore. Could still be 2 hours and still. I actually truly believe we could still be out there and still not score. The lack of urgency and just the commit, it's just not good. We just don't look as if we can come back. I think Kilmarnock was a bit of a freak result, to be honest with you, come back against us. So we'll not come back. I'll move on to just Barry Ferguson's press conference after it. And one thing that kind of stuck out with me is said, nowhere near what I asked him to do was the exact words that he said to me. So obviously they're not following his instructions. Are they actually just ignoring what he's saying? Are they putting out tactics? Ultimately, the manager and his coaching staff are putting tactics and instructions into these players, and are they just refusing to do it? And that's, and to do that to Clement, should Clement have been given more time to sort these things out? What authority did he have? I've got a concern with that. Andrew, did you watch after-match press conference yourself, mate?
Yeah, I saw snippets of it because it is quite interesting to hear Barry, because I think he's realistic with a lot of what he talks about, and he won't kind of give you the kind of political answers, or do the Clement and pick out we were good conceding a corner, or we were good defending this. At the end of the day, you lost the game. No, it's a bit of a weird one, because with the way the instructions now, it is possible that the players are looking at Barry thinking, you're not going to sack any of us. You're not going to be the manager next season. You're just here to steady the ship. Maybe we don't have to listen to you. Maybe it could be one of these, situations. Obviously, people are watching players on the park, and so any potential manager that might be, being spoken to now, because I'm imagining a lot of that is starting now, especially with the potential new ownership in June. The players might be welded to a kind of specific way of playing. Clement, something that annoys me about modern football, when you've got flair players that have got great ability, they don't get to show their ability as much now. They're kind of like, right, this is your role in this grand scheme. You've got to do this, go there, don't push up too far, do this, do that. Maybe Clement's just knocked a lot out of them, in a sense. This is how you're going to be playing. Obviously, Barry's not had too much time with the guys. He's just come in and already had 2 games in the space of a week after being asked to head up the job at Rangers. Maybe the guys need a few weeks to take it all in and get it all down. Obviously, Barry might not necessarily be the best tactician. We don't know. It's a little bit of an unknown at the minute, but he does have McCann there, who I think has got a good footballing brain. Obviously the help with Dodds as well. So I'm sure that they are, looking at a way and an approach of playing. Obviously, they're not changing things up too much. We are still seeing that kind of 4-2-3-1, probably because it's familiarity with the players. But also Barry, he was known for using that formation as well. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. It's a difficult one at the minute. When a manager comes in, obviously you get that new manager bounce, generally speaking. We've always had it with, we had it with Beale, we had it with Clement. Beale's got a fantastic record, unbelievably, due to that, because the dead rubber games he was playing in, he was getting a lot out the players, because it was not meaningful, which I think is the reality with a lot of these players now. it's a bit of a weird one. Maybe they're not getting that new manager bounce because he's not the new manager. He's the interim. So, you know, who knows? Maybe that's part of it as well. Yeah, it's like Gordon's saying there, you're right. I do think the formation needs to change. It's not suited to Scottish football. It's suited to European football. I agree with that double pivot, you know. It has worked for us in Europe and worked quite well, but Scotland, no. I think you're seeing 4-4-2 coming back a lot now. You're seeing in the Premiership some teams setting up with 4-4-2. People are liking that double strike force, and I think Dessers and Danilo complement each other quite well up top. So I think that's something we possibly need to do. Maybe we'll see a change. I don't know. Not for the next game. Maybe that 4-2-3-1 is probably the one we should go with when we're heading out to Turkey. But yeah, Ryan, hard to tell at the minute. It's a few days in. Maybe they're not fully grasping everything yet. But I'm sure Barry will make sure he drills it into them. I'm sure he will.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's put the game to bed. Let's try and focus on some good news. Like Cammy K, senior will be a memory soon, bro. I knew Dawn is coming. So it's some great news come out today through the press that it looks as if we're almost over the line for this takeover from the 49ers Enterprises. It looks as if a deal is now agreed in principle, and we're pretty much now in the hands of the lawyers. So I believe that they've probably done their due diligence now. I think that should hopefully be done. Obviously, we're aware of the internal audit that's going on just now, which probably, I dare say, they had a strong hand in as well. So we're nearly there, which was some great news. So hopefully that's the one thing that we're looking at. Doug, I'm going to come to you first of all, mate, on this. Now, are we now in a situation where this has to happen? You know, could you imagine a situation where this doesn't happen? Obviously, we're not doing well in the park. There's things that are obviously we're managerless at the moment as well. This takeover is probably the one kind of thing that's keeping us away from the front door at the moment, to be honest with you. I would be, I'd be terrified to think if this situation wasn't, if we didn't have this takeover in the mess, what would actually be going on outside. So do you think that this has to go through now?
I mean, yeah, ideally, like I say, it would be an actual new dawn if obviously someone was to buy over the club. Obviously we've been running now for the last decade plus with at least 2 or 3 of the board in prominent positions at one point or another, and I think Dave King was right about one thing when he talked about sort of investor fatigue. We've gotten a lot of money from some of these people. John Bennett in particular has put huge amounts of his own money into the club to keep it going, keep it ticking over, to give it financing options to help build Emerson House. And that's all really good. And I think once time passes a bit, people will be able to look on them a bit more positively for that aspect. But at the same time, the longer it's gone on, the more it's become obvious that they're struggling to run the club successfully, and they're just not capable of doing that. And so we need not only fresh investment, but fresh ideas and fresh leadership at the very, very top. They'll come in, as I say, they'll be able, able to bring new ideas into the club, new investment, new opportunities, new opinions, new ways to look at things, and also let's say the investment that potential is huge. We talk about someone like Dessers, and Andrew saying Dessers should stay or could stay, and would potentially like to stay. I'm on a similar boat. Like, I think the only things that go against Dessers staying at Rangers, given how many goals he scores per season, is his age and the amount of money he's on. Now, if we get bought over, the amount of money he's on, maybe it doesn't become quite as big of an issue, because maybe we can afford that a little bit more. And so maybe we're able to have a squad player that's on that little bit extra, because if it's someone that pretty much guarantees you a regular contribution like Dessers has done, I would say that's worth it. But it's the fact that we're in the position we are now that we can't afford that. We could have, like we used to have 2, 3, 4, 5 strikers that were all of reasonable quality and reasonable money, and we could interchange them. They would all come on and they would score goals. But that's something that we're not able to do now because we can't afford to do it. So these guys coming in, although I'm not saying they're not going to come in and splashing cash all over the place, and we're not going to suddenly have a team of 30k players. And I'm not saying that, but it just allows for those small margins to increase. So things like that will make a big difference, because it'll allow us to get some of those players that we were on the edge of getting, like your Seamas, for example. Had we been able to push the boat out just that little bit, we might have been able to get Seema. And so maybe with a bit more financial backing, a few more investments, maybe a new shirt sponsor, whatever it might be, bringing more money in, you're able to maybe push that a little bit and get those type of players. And those type of players are the players that will make the difference to winning or not. And obviously, once you get that, you're then getting into the Champions League more regularly, and then you're getting the money from that. And so all these things sort of settle and fall into place. And not only that, I think the fans need it. You know, it's been so long. It's felt like such a drag. And now, in terms of lack of success, we need this. We need new hope. To quote Star Wars. So we need a new hope to to give us something new to aim for, because we're about to now go in obviously a period with another new manager. We've had 4 managers quick on the bounce now. We need some new hope that the next one's not just going to be the same. And if we've got new leadership and new ownership, then at least we can go, right, well, maybe they'll make different decisions. Maybe they're going to look at different people and different things. So it really makes all the difference. And I think, it's in a really good place now, like you say, with an agreement in principle. They'll still have some due diligence to go. They'll get access to some additional internal stuff now that they've got that agreement and sort of signatures in place. But the good thing is Rangers is a really, in terms of the business that these guys do, Rangers is a pretty straightforward affair. We've not got loads of hidden stuff going on. We've not got anything like the hidden HMRC stuff or anything like that. So it should be pretty straightforward. And come June, we should be sitting with new owners at this point.
Yeah, so just to obviously bring us up for what Sharpie's asking about here is, what does deal done in principle actually mean? So it means that the people who are looking to buy the club have came to an agreement in price on what, likes of what Dave King is looking to sell the club for. And they'll be presented with a certain amount of information, like what Doug's saying here, where there's obviously publicly published accounts. So you'll probably find that the 49ers accountants will now basically be forensically examining these accounts to make sure they're authentic, to make sure that that these figures haven't been fabricated. There'll be certain questions that will be asked over certain, things that are going on in the club. And they're now, because they've agreed the price, they'll be given access and the peek behind the curtain. Rangers will be asking them for proof of funds as well. They'll be asking to show they've actually got the money to buy the club, that to give them access to this kind of private information, the inner goings on in the buildings. They need to actually show that the money's there and the coin's going. Obviously, we truly believe the 49ers do have the money. They're worth billions and billions of pounds, and the guys that they've got on board are the real deal. They're not a kid-on billionaire from Motherwell, as we spoke about earlier on. Andrew, just come to you on the next one, just to kind of make up a video. So it looks as if the Americans be quite clever the way they're going to structure this deal. It looks as if the 49ers Enterprise are going to own 29.9% of the club. And Andrew Cavan is going to come in. He's going to take the rest of it, 21.1% of it, which keeps us kind of under the radar as far as dual ownership's concerned. Obviously, there's every possibility that we could meet Leeds United in Europe at some point, looking at the long term. Names that have been mentioned that have agreed on this deal: Dave King, John Bennett, who Doug alluded to there, George Taylor. One name that's not coming to this is Dougie Park. Doesn't look as if his name's been mentioned to sale. Now, given the fact that Dougie had a history of, we're led to believe he was the one that down tools on Gerrard and didn't give Gerrard the investment that he needed following the back of the Champions League exit, and obviously the kind of downward demise of the club since we won the 55th championship. Are you happy enough that Dougie Park's still going to be involved in the club at some sort of level? Would you rather seen him go?
I think personally, it's good to kind of have a fresh slate. But at the same time, I think sometimes we all remember the bad as much as the good, and it's understandable. Obviously, we know the situation with Gerrard. Basically, he wasn't given the money that he was promised, essentially, fix the roof while the sun is shining. And I don't think it would have been a hell of a lot of money. Now, at the same time, we had spent quite a lot of money up to that point, 7 million on Ryan Kent, and a few others. Obviously, we had Roof come in, Itten come in, because we thought that Morelos was going. Obviously, Morelos didn't go. So we had a massive outlay. And we did need to recoup some money, so I can kind of understand to a degree if I take the blue tinted specs off why he maybe didn't get maybe what he was looking for, but realistically, that was the point where we could have turned the screw and been dominating Scottish football ever since. And I've got to be completely honest here, we would have been Champions League every season, because if you finish top, that's what happens. It's a difficult one. Personally, I think a clean slate is better. However, maybe he's looking to recoup more, maybe from what he's put in over the time. Maybe he's waiting for the right deal to come along. As well as I do, because we're Rangers fans. Rangers is a massive asset, has a massive fan base, a worldwide fan base. Yes, Scottish football, you don't get that much money for winning the league. We get more money from winning a couple of Europa League matches than winning the league in Scotland. But there is a massive business opportunity, and maybe he's seeing that as maybe he's not going to sell until the price is right. Obviously, Dave King's been quite vocal for years. Oasis Assets, he's been looking to sell. He's been, very open about that. But it's still positive. Like you say, this isn't some random billionaire you've never heard of that claims to have a lot of money. This is a massive consortium with massive amounts of money. Yes, don't get me wrong, we're not going to see a lot of cash being splashed, but we will see more than what has been splashed in the past couple of seasons. There's been a downsizing operation at the club for a reason. It's to show that we can balance the books and look healthier, especially when, things have been going great off the park. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm going on to other bits now, but to answer your question, I don't know. I don't think he'll be here that long. I think he's probably just waiting for the right price, on his investment, I think.
Yeah, that's my kind of opinion on it as well. I think he's obviously not hurting for money. He's got all his money back out the club that he put in. So I think he's probably waiting to just see where does this take us. Is there a possibility of the European Super League? Are we going to be chapping the door on that? So, shrewd investment from Dugan. You can't, be angry that he hasn't sold his shares. They're his shares. He can do what he wants with them. He may be looking at them as a legacy for his family or something like that. So ultimately, it's absolutely fine. Doug, I'll come to you. Conscious of time here, so just if you could limit your answer on this one. Do the new owners rip the very best of Scottish football from all the other clubs and get a proper Scottish fan base? As soon as you say that to me, I think Lennon Miller right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, we should always be looking to sign the best players from our league. Not only are they obviously accustomed to the league, and so they've got that advantage, but you're obviously weakening your opponents by doing so. And I mean, we've got a history of signing players from other teams that have gone on to become great players for Rangers. You can look at this. I was about to say one name there, but he's not very popular anymore, so I'll maybe leave him alone. A winger from Kilmarnock, shall we say? But before he became the most hated man in the world, he was an excellent player for us. Chris Boyd, obviously, also from Kilmarnock. We've signed various players. Obviously, more recently, Jack from Aberdeen. And I would like nothing more than if in 5 years' time you've got Lyle Cameron and Lennon Miller tearing up our midfield, running rampage for a title. That'd be absolutely grand, and I do think it's something we don't do often enough. Whether it's a snobbiness or whether it has been a financial imperative. Obviously, there's that old firm tax that teams will apply when either side of Glasgow comes for their players, and that's fair enough from their point of view. I'd be doing the same if I was them. If I'm looking to get 4 million for a player and Rangers come in, suddenly that'll be 4.5, 5 I'll be looking for. Because vice versa, they're wanting to go, well, let's get what we can out of them if they're going to take what they want from us. And again, having more backing will make that process easier as well. So I think it'd be great to be go back to bringing in players, and not just the Scottish ones. Any player, it doesn't matter. As I say, I get the idea of people wanting like this, the Scottish spine, and I think there's a little bit of that is useful, but I think you can get that from the off the park stuff as well, like your coaches and things like that, because people usually refer to wanting it because it's about the identity and all that kind of stuff, and I think you can get that from various places, not just on the park. So young Scottish players, yes, you need that for the European side of things anyway. So you need to be signing decent young Scottish players if we're not going to bring them through our own academy. But as I say, I'd like that for any player as long as they're good enough for the club.
Yeah, I think probably just to play devil's advocate here, obviously, I think the vast majority of our fan base are very positive about this, and obviously, great hope and expectations of what can come. One thing that I raised concern on our group chat today was the possibility of how are they going to raise all this money? And there's only probably one avenue. They're obviously going to put in so much money themselves, but under financial fair play, they can only put in so much. But one thing they can do is start deriving match day income from us. So I've got concerns that season ticket prices are going to go up and possibly go through the roof. And the things like, what it costs you for a pie, what it costs you for a juice at the stand, all these things are going to go up in price, and the investment basically that they're looking to do is basically going to be burdened on the fans. The last thing that I want to see is all of our loyal Rangers fans being priced out of Ibrox. I still want to see families, I still want to see mums and dads, and I still want to see all the kids going to the games and enjoying the football and not, have the luck that I had to see Rangers through the great times. So I'm worried that we could end up becoming a tourist club, to be honest with you. And I think you've seen that quite a lot down south, where you see all these half and half scarves kicking about. So I think that we need to communicate that quite early to the new owners, that we want to make sure that we're not here to pay for this. We've done our bit as far as, making sure the club's still in existence. And, like more recent times, we paid for our season tickets during COVID, knowing fine well we weren't going to get to a single game, and basically made a donation to the club at that point. So what's your kind of thoughts? And have you got any concerns like I've got in that kind of regards, Andrew?
I've always been quite proud that Rangers have never quite gone to that like Premier League level of charging fans. It is actually ridiculous in England. I live in England, and I see it all the time. Fans are essentially fleeced, considering how much money's brought in via television, where it's almost like they don't necessarily need to, because they're already getting tens of millions, hundreds of millions via the TV route. In Scotland, obviously, it's a very different kettle of fish. The EPL overshadows, even the English Championship overshadows elements of the Scottish League. And, we have a poor TV deal. We have somebody sitting, obviously Neil Doncaster on 500k a year, which, we really have to see justify that. But I think some prices will go up. I think that to be in line with FFP, you've got to have the income, to spend. And I think sadly FFP, this might be a way of hurting the normal football fan, which is mad. FFP is supposed to be there to stop clubs kind of overspending, but clubs find another way, and they just put the charge somewhere else, which is onto the supporter. Like you say, Ryan, you see families that have got season books that go to Ibrox. It's a very unique thing. We don't quite have the full tourist football thing. We have an element of it, especially for big matches. You do see people scrambling for tickets, especially from outside the country. But I think, you look at, for example, Ryan, the Oasis concert that was announced obviously last year. They were one of the first kind of main artists to start charging a few £100 for a standing ticket at one of several concerts that they're doing. And now you're seeing every concert seems to be coming up now into triple figures rather than 15, 20 quid. You can't get any of those type of tickets anymore, can you? You know as well as I do, Ryan, Doug, you'll know this as well. If the season ticket doubled in price, most of us would still be there. And I think there's the element of that they will know. Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that it's going to double. I'm not saying that. There'll always be somebody to take that season book, even just in Scotland, even though it's not that full tourist league. Sadly, I think that price rises will happen, and I think they do incrementally. but you might see something bigger, possibly. It'd be sad because there will be people priced out the game, but there's easily somebody just to take over their place, sadly, due to the long waiting list that we have.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're speaking at length about the identity on the park, and we're all asking for this identity on the park. So I think we also need to make sure that we're also protecting the identity in the stand as well, and make sure that we're still recognised. We recognise ourselves both off the park and on the park as well. Doug, quick question to you. This is probably one of the most controversial subjects in Scotland. One of the kind of the income revenues that I've always been kind of asking for is the introduction or the reintroduction of alcohol sales in the stadium. You go into the continent and you see most European grounds, you can buy a beer or a wine. Most of them will not serve you spirits and stuff, but at least you can get a half-strength lager. Is that an income revenue that the 49ers should be looking to kind of push the SFA on? You can go to rugby in Scotland and buy a beer without any problems. You can sit at your seat and have a beer at the rugby. Down in England, you can stand in the concourse and have a beer at half-time. We're well aware of the kind of bad press that sometimes alcohol has when it is associated with football. But, is there a conversation that should be had that could potentially start to be a real income revenue stream for us? You see how busy the likes of the Loudon is. You see how busy the wee Rangers is. Edmondson House can be busy on occasion. They're talking about G51. So is that an income revenue that the club should be asking for and start getting looked at?
I'd love to say I trust Scottish football crowds to have just drinks available, but I'm not entirely sure that I do. I would probably be up for it in some limited capacity, like if if it was somehow tied to your ticket and you had to beep it, and thusly you could only get a certain, like maybe 2 or 3, and that was it. Maybe something like that, but I don't know if I just don't know if I trust crowds to get it. I mean, can you imagine how many people would be tanking beers at halftime in that Motherwell game? I'd have been inconsolable.
Truth be told, though, mate. Sorry to interrupt you. See if you want to take alcohol into Ibrox, you'll take alcohol into Ibrox.
Well, I was going to say that myself. The amount that gets smuggled in, yeah,
that's very true. I mean, I think they've got options. Obviously, there's this sports bar that's meant to be coming, so there's revenue to be made there, and they can certainly do it with that. I mean, I don't see it. It would be it's a limited stream of revenue because you can only be able to sell so much in terms of however much they can keep in stores or whatever. So I wouldn't class it as a high profile one. Definitely one that they could look at. It wouldn't be one of the top ones on my list because it has a ceiling. Because as I say, they can only put so much beer in Ibrox, so that's as much as they could sell game on game. Whereas looking at things like someone mentioned the first £100 million shirt sale, things like shirt sales, they'll be able to open up Ibrox to commercial deals across the US and things like that as well. That's where they'll be able to make bigger and grow both schemes because they can have clauses within those. And that, right, this is the deal we're signing. We're in the Europa League right now, but if we qualify for the Champions League, it goes up by 20 grand and things like that. So you can scale and grow a lot of those things. Whereas the alcohol one, I think, there's only so much money that can be made by that. But I wouldn't want them to rule out anything. Look at everything, and then hopefully make good decisions on them. That would be my hope.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm all for it on a trial basis. Like we said, if you want to take drink in, pretty good chance you'll get it in. So obviously, as we've seen in the past, unfortunately, some people do let themselves down and start throwing bottles onto the park and stuff like that. Thankfully, nobody has been seriously injured on the back of that happening. It's just it's happening anyway. So why can we not just monetize it? And it is something like half-strength alcohol. And if you do introduce it somewhere like the club deck, because I sat up there, if you do introduce it somewhere like the club deck, to start with on a trial basis and just to see how it goes. And if it's something you can then roll out, but I do agree with what you're saying, that it should be linked to your ticket in some sort of way, so that it is kind of policed there. Because, people, I mean, I'm guilty of myself, throwing 5 pints down my throat within a couple of hours just so I could go to the football. Whereas if I could maybe have a pint in the football, I'd maybe only have 1 or 2, go to the game early, have a couple of drinks in the stadium, maybe read the programme, watch the players warming up and stuff like that, rather than try to jump up, 16 flights of stairs to try and hear Simply the Best before the players come out, and nearly half kill myself in the process. So I'm for it, but obviously it's got to be done in the right way, and it's got to be done with everyone's cooperation. So we're just kicking on to the hour, guys. So I just want to thank you both for your time. Is there anything else you want to say, Andrew, before we go off?
No, I totally agree with everything you said there. And people smuggle it in all the time. So why not charge them for it? I totally agree. Totally agree. No, brilliant to be on, Ryan. Thanks for having us.
No problem at all, mate. Doug, yourself, any final thoughts at all?
I had one thought, before we're talking either. I'll put the question to you, Ryan. Given how little we've gotten out of Danilo, do you think it would have been better if we'd sold Danilo and kept Lammers?
Only because Lammers appears to have a bit better fitness record. I think we should have played Lammers at number 9 instead of the number 10. Lammers, for me, I think he got a skills book off his mum when he was a wee boy, but the last 2 chapters are missing. and he's basically a bad turn.
That's a great phrase.
He's basically a bad turn away from a Ballon d'Or. You know, he skins 3 guys, and he's like, great, do something with it now. And he kicks the ball at the park. And, you know, but that's for me. And listen, it just didn't work out. It's as simple as that. But, you know, I think Danilo's injuries weren't, you know, he's obviously been smashed in the face by one. He's done his knee, you know, and it didn't work out, and he had to go back in and get it opened back up again. So it's a strange one. But, you know, in the benefit of hindsight, of course, Lammers definitely went on to score quite a few goals on loan last season for Utrecht. I think he's doing not bad for FC20 as well. They've obviously got to the latter stages of the European competition. They've just been knocked out. So, strange question, mate. But listen, we'll get it wrapped up. Just a couple of wee words. If you liked what you've watched tonight, guys, obviously please like and subscribe. You'll get a notification when we're coming back online. We're on pretty much every single night of the week, post-match, pre-matches. We'll do the hard stuff, unfortunately. When it comes on, it's not always good news. We were brought to you tonight by our sponsors. Off to the match I go. So you'll see a QR code on screen there. If you're looking for any memorabilia for yourself, for a family member, you got a special birthday coming up or an anniversary, there's lots of really nice stuff on there. You know, we get some gifted signed shirts, some signed photographs and stuff as well. So make sure you go in there and you'll get a 10% off if you use the code Journal10 at the checkout there. So I'm not going to put on Hulk Hogan tonight. I promise myself I wouldn't do that. So just leaves me to say that every night is a Raiders Journal night. Thanks very much, guys.